Hello neighbors, John the Whiskey Neighbor here, and welcome to my kitchen table. Today I want to talk about a Canadian whiskey. It's new on the scene, which immediately drew my attention. It is called Bearface, Canadian whiskey. Well, thanks for coming back. As I said in the intro, we're going to look at this new Canadian whiskey. First, appreciate the bottle. You can see the cutting, the etching in here. Nice color, good glass. I have to say, to this new group, I'm not sure what I call them, new company, well done in presentation. It says right on here, Bearface, Canadian whiskey, triple oak. Hide nothing, fear nothing. And then there's a signature for master blender that I can't read. Bottled at 42.5%. Says right at the top, aged 7 years, product of Canada. And on the back, it talks a bit about how they sourced this. So what this is a group of blenders, Coopers maybe, anyways, in BC, I think in the Mission Hill area, really wanted to put out a Canadian whiskey, but they didn't want to distill it. They wanted to find good whiskey and then finish it. They think the art is in the finishing. So this one mentions that it was picked up on the shores of Lake Huron in Ontario and brought back to BC and then finished. So it starts, and I did write them, and at first they gave me just their marketing speak, but then they stayed interested and shared a bit more about the story. So as you can find on their website, it's sourced. It just says from single grain. They wouldn't tell me whether it was corn, wheat, rye, barley, whatever that was, just single grain. That was already aged 7 years in ex-bourbon barrels. Then they took that, and then they aged it in I believe it was French oak, but it was French oak that was used to make Bordeaux wine from that area in BC. And that was used for some time. In fact, on one email, I don't know if he was mixing up his 7 years, but he said, oh yeah, we've used those barrels for 7 years to age wine. And then we put that whiskey in it. And then it gets aged in Hungarian oak. So ex-bourbon, so that'd be American oak. Then French oak, that was used for wine. Then Hungarian oak, it did say dry cured, and it talked about the curing of the oak for 3 years. I have no information on how long it's spent in French or in Hungarian, but that's all the oak going into this. I did confirm they'd chill filter, and the fellow said, no, we do not color. So this, he said, this rich color, deep, dark, comes entirely from the French oak that had Bordeaux wine. Let's get into the whiskey. That was a lot of history. On the nose, you're going to get that fruit, that red fruit, juicy red fruit right away. So much so that it might confuse you a little bit. It is chewy red fruit. Finally, give it a little time, and you get some of that vanilla, some of that candy, but pleasant. I'm leaning in, and at 42.5%, quite approachable. As I said, juicy red fruit, and then you can get just a little bit of cinnamon, certainly vanilla, a little bit of toffee candy, but the fruit is going to come at you pretty quick. And a little bit of oil or something in there. Wax. Okay, let's give it a sip. This is a pretty different Canadian whiskey. It is fruity like I'm not sure I've had before. Deep, dark, plummy, chewy, raisiny. As it settles, I get a little more interest. And a little more, some of the spices start to come that you get from oak. As it settles more oak, more wood, more allspice. Wow. Quite a different taste though. Really stands out as not just another sweet Canadian whiskey. So very different departure. I haven't had a lot. I've only had a few pours of this. And I will say, I applaud the amount of information they've given me. Oh, the different cask types they went through. And the age stamp that's on here, to say 7 years and then go through finishing. And to be able to release to me, you know what, we don't color this. I appreciate that. The presentation, phenomenal. And I also appreciate that really, the whiskey here is quite unique. Yeah. So I appreciate all of that. And I am okay that they say up front, we didn't distill this. We thought we were going to bring to it our knowledge in cooperage, in finishes, in winemaking. And so I appreciate that right up front. Not sure this is going to be fair. I think I'm going to go to this whiskey when I want that change, when I don't want a bourbon, when I don't want a Canadian whiskey, I don't want a Scotch. I think I could see this as enjoyable, almost thirst-quenching type, its flavors profile there. And now that it's been in my mouth a while, even some spices come up, which I appreciate. But I'm not sure that it's balanced. So from a critical point of view, I find the wine finishing actually overpowering. And makes this, I mean, it's not a juice, it's still a whiskey, and it's bottled well. I'm glad they kicked it up to 42.5 instead of at 40. At 40, it would have felt to me like a juice, but it just has an amazing amount of that red fruit influence, which I think is a little off balance in this, in the way I like whiskey. So just my personal opinion. I don't think I could give this more than maybe 3.5 stars, although love the presentation and all the other stuff. It reminds me a ton of red cask that came from Wayne Gretzky. I don't have any red cask. I've got their ice cask. But I wanted to just sort of give it a comparison. So on the nose, some of that same kind of fruit, but this one's lighter and gentler and has stronger caramels. Yeah, more caramel, more toffee in it. Yeah, and a little more balanced presentation in the palate. But actually, some of the same profile, much spicier. I don't even know if there's any rye in this one at all. This clearly has some rye, which cuts into the sweetness. And actually, now that I'm letting it breathe a little bit in me, I like it. I swallowed it wrong, but yep, this is lighter, juicier, more refreshing, but not what I'm looking for in a whiskey. This one, very similar, a little less fruit, a little more caramel, and it has a rye cut to it that really finishes it. For me, I actually like this one better, and I know a lot of people are kind of so-so on the Gretzky, but this one's okay for me. And this one will be an interesting pour, and I actually will look forward to pouring it for some of my friends who I think may enjoy it. But for me as a whiskey, it's too far into the wine profile. That's my thoughts. Good on you guys, Bearface, for kicking this out, and great first try. And I love the information you did provide. The casking and the age stamp. Please just keep that up. Thanks, guys. John the Whiskey Neighbor here. If you haven't subscribed, please do. I do review a fair number of Canadians because I'm in Canada and I'm proud of it. But I also like to talk about any other whiskey. So if you like conversation around whiskey, think about subscribing. You guys take care.